So, I'm blue. While we would normally be doing a broadcast on the Twitch stream, today we are on Justin TV, because today we're going to be looking at some weekend movies. I call this the weekend wrap-up, which gives us the opportunity to look at movies that have come out recently, because we don't like to do reviews and just talk about gaming. We like most digital entertainment. So, I'm Fullicide SD, also known as Scott, and for anyone who's watching from the archives, thank you. This is really an archives video, no one really in the chats today, because this is the first weekend wrap-up, the first group of reviews for movies that we'll be doing. And this gives us, again, an opportunity to talk about movies. It's really hard to do reviews for movies. You can't really show pictures or clips, legally speaking. Or if you don't have basically a slew of lawyers or syndication or things like that. So this gives us the opportunity to at least talk about the films briefly and keep things interesting, don't drag on too long, and again, just say what needs to be said. So today we're going to be talking about Riddick first, and then we'll take a break and switch into Insidious. Insidious Chapter 2 and Riddick, Rule of the Dark is what they called it. So, we'll begin with Riddick and move into Insidious. Starting off with Riddick, basically with the only image I can really show, the movie poster. I was really looking forward to Riddick. Was a big fan of Pitch Black and The Chronicles of Riddick. I actually forgot what it was called because they all actually became The Chronicles of Riddick. The Chronicles of Riddick, the movie, not The Chronicles of Riddick Pitch Black or The Chronicles of Riddick, the animated series, or either of the two video games. The actual movie was alright. It was good. It was a little loaded, is a good way to refer to it. The movie was loaded, had a lot going on, and you really had to keep up if you wanted to really get the most out of it. Even the ending, you had to keep up with everything that was going on and have to have seen Pitch Black to, again, really get the full enjoyment out of the experience. So, really, Riddick has been made almost essentially by Pitch Black, and then by one of the video games, Butcher Bay, which was not directly actually neither of the video games were directly correlated with any of the movies. They were really in and of themselves games and their own stories. Now, Butcher Bay was a phenomenal game, really a game for its time. It was on the second generation of consoles, at least when it comes to PS2 and Xbox. The other game was on PS3, Xbox 360, etc. And, So there isn't really much to say about the games, really much to say about the movies, except that Pitch Black was phenomenal. It had a lot of character and just a lot of ways to connect to the situation, especially if you love sci-fi film. So, how does Riddick Rule the Dark compare to these films? Well, I didn't really know what to expect going into Riddick Rule the Dark. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't watch many of the trailers. I watched the trailers that were seen over the internet and on TV. I didn't go hunting for extra details. I knew that it was a movie where Riddick was, again, stuck on a planet and, more importantly, being hunted by bounty hunters instead of being stuck with regular old civilians, and this is a key difference in the film. I'm going to go ahead and remove this now. So the basic information behind the film is that if you watched the end of Chronicles of Riddick, he's basically in a situation he is unsure how to approach. The theme of keep what you kill that was in Chronicles of Riddick basically follows him right up until the end, where he finds himself to be a king of an army he did not intend to lead. Not to spoil anything, but it's hard not to spoil when there are important details to be said going into this movie. So, you're not immediately aware of why Riddick is on the planet. Eventually, you find out that, of course, he was backstabbed, and of course, he's left on the planet to die, or at least they tried to kill him, and of course, to no avail. It's Riddick. He's a badass, and that's one of the many reasons you actually go to see these movies, because Riddick is a badass. But one of the other reasons is that the movies have had a lot of other characters, a lot of other great characters behind them. And, well, I can't say the same for Riddick Rule of the Dark. Basically, he's stuck on the planet for almost 20 to 30 minutes of the film, possibly even 40 minutes, before you actually see other characters. There are a lot of alien life forms on the planet that are trying to kill him, of course, and of course he overcomes. In a kind of cool series of events. It's kind of like an Eye of the Tiger montage series of moments where he's really getting back to his roots as opposed to how he came to conquer the enemies in Chronicles of Riddick. So, through these series of events, he's hunted by alien dogs, alien kinds of swamp things, if you will, and he takes one of the dogs as his companions. He takes one of the alien pups and takes them as his companions. And this is actually one of the stronger points of the movie. He raises the dog, and there are connections to the dog for the viewer. Kind of just quirky things you would say to your own dog if you were raising it, in that way you talk to it. One of the cuter lines he says is, I thought we share everything, when the dog is playfully keeping something from Riddick, wants to play. But of course, Vin Diesel being a man, a man's man, just very macho, and that is something that very much drives this movie, is that kind of macho testosterone mentality. And you'll either love that or you won't like that. I personally was not a fan. But I include that as really a neutral point in judging the movie, because, again, it's one of those things you'll either like or you won't like. So, again, it makes it hard for him or hard for the viewer to really see Riddick connecting to this dog so well. But it's still maintained in that very lone wolf, I'm a man, the pack leader kind of way, and it works. Unfortunately, the thing about the dog is, so inevitably you see its fate, just for being what it is, a dog. And that being cliche is not the only cliche of the movie. So, let's go ahead and move into the score. No, not yet. We're going to keep talking about the movie. Being the first weekend wrap-up, I'm still just kind of acclimating to how I want to do this, so again, I wasn't really sure what to expect from this movie. Is Riddick just simply on a planet? Is he simply just being hunted by more bounty hunters? Is that it? Or is there more to this movie? And at least for half, or maybe even two-thirds of the movie, I did hold that hope that there is something more. Not to spoil a key plot point, but if you are someone who goes digging for details on a movie before you go to see the movie, there is a key character name, Johns, once again in the movies. Now, does this mean Johns lived? How is that possible? He died in Pitch Black. Not to spoil Pitch Black for anyone. But, yeah, Johns died in Pitch Black. A. Johns died in Pitch Black. But, obviously, for there to be a Johns, there likely, if there was a family of Johns, there would be more Johns. So, Daddy Johns actually is a bounty hunter and comes looking for Riddick on this unknown planet that he seems to be stuck on. And it's through a key series of events that... Well done. Whoops. That he comes looking for Riddick. Riddick basically triggers an event to bring the bounty hunters to the planet to come looking for him. And of course, being Riddick and being a badass, he intends to fight the bounty hunters to the last and take their ships and get off the world and pursue his search for Furia, the planet he actually came from, a planet of humanoids who possess special powers is the best way to put it. If you don't watch or really read into the lore or watch the cartoon or anime variation within the series, well, there really isn't much to be said. Furia's basically unknown planet, but you know from elements within the film that he's driven to find it. And you don't really care. Wow, why the search for Furia, Riddick? Why the search for Furia, Vin Diesel? Why the search for Furia, writers of the film? It's never really made clear, but hey, not many things are actually made clear. I said I wanted to hold hope out for the film that, you know, the turning up of Johns in the film was actually really cool, but nothing comes of it. In fact, it's very just, again, testosterone and just man-driven. Lots of F-bombs, lots of fucks are dropped, of course, and as would be had with a kind of cheesy film, there are tits. And it's not my style of film. I wasn't in the mood for it. Being the way the film was, with those scenes being cut out that really can't be shown on TV, I guess it could be that kind of weekend flick that you have on in the background while you get things done around the house, or just kind of relax to throw a few beers back when you have nothing to do. But other than that, I don't know if this was the right way to continue the Chronicles of Riddick series, at least in film, because it just has no character, and that is what Pitch Black was built upon. Stranded on a planet with a crashed ship, but with real civilians, real characters, and real conflicts between those characters, with a known killer on the loose who they have to rely on to help them to get off the planet. And it was, I couldn't help but come home after watching the film and watching Pitch Black and really saying that, wow, Pitch Black really was that good back when, and it still is. And unfortunately, trying to build upon that idea, trying to continue that idea, or just remake, in a sense, Pitch Black by doing Riddick Rule the Dark, didn't work out, not in my opinion. So now we'll kick over to the score and really just kind of wrap up this first weekend wrap-up. So, wrong score. Ha! Spoilers. So, I wanted to feel better about the film, but it just tried so hard to imitate Pitch Black that I couldn't give it much better a score. It is, to the viewer who really won't enjoy the film, it is bad. You really won't get much enjoyment out of it. You'll see, if you watch the film on DVD by rental or actually go to see the film in the theater, there are tits, there are muscles, there are guns, and rocket bikes. I actually failed to mention rocket bikes before switching to the score. The rocket bike scenes are simply cheesy. They almost serve entirely no purpose and act as filler from getting from A to B. Rocket bikes, please, Hollywood, take these out of your movies. I didn't love it in... the best example at the moment would be Looper. I didn't love the scenes of the rocket bike in Looper, and for me, as a viewer, they just have never worked. So, score is a range going from 2 to a 4.5. 4.5 being at the best. It is okay. The pros for the film: Vin Diesel, still very cool, still very badass as Riddick. Really, actually just want to see more of Riddick, but not in this situation. When there are other real characters to feed off of, he works. But unfortunately, Katie Sackhoff, from best known for likely her Battlestar Galactica role as Kara Thrace Starbuck, she did such a phenomenal role. But in this film, she plays the role of Doll. Not spelled D-O-L-L, which you actually kind of interpret it as because everyone is so sexist towards her. Shocker there. But, yeah, she just doesn't send it home, kind of acts as that standard, oh, I'm a woman in a man's world, Nah. And with Matt Nable acting as Boss Johns, it just he does well, but I don't know if it was simply that the writing wasn't there or if there simply wasn't any room for characters. Dave Bautista has some humor, some cliched lines, much like any of them have to throw at the screen, but again, he comes down to simply being a muscle figure, just combating Riddick, combating Vin Diesel with his muscle, and no shocker there. Again, it's just you see almost every turn coming, and it just at the end of the movie, at the end of the almost predictable or pretty terrible ending, it just leaves you with a terrible face or a shaking head. And yeah, there really isn't much to say except that the only neutral things there are is that the Riddick franchise is back. I don't know. Maybe we should have left it until there was something better to really throw out with the Riddick franchise. I personally had read some interesting tidbits after seeing the Chronicles of Riddick to see where it could go. I'm personally more interested to see them go in that direction. If you read on the wiki or any of the Riddick fan sites, those would have been a better direction to go than I feel this film. The alien dog, again, had more character than a lot of the bounty hunters. Why were the bounty hunters even on the planet? They were just there for cannon fodder, honestly. The cons, of course, plenty of them, tries to imitate Pitch Black way too much, and simply can't do it because what really made Pitch Black was the character. It wasn't the fact that suddenly there's this shift into almost a nighttime situation where these beasts basically try to rip everything apart, and of course the bounty hunters have at each other, but what really made it was real character. People who shouldn't be in the situation are, and that's what really made Pitch Black, and the idea of wanting to see them live. Do you really want to see these bounty hunters live? And the only reason that I really felt like I wanted to see Riddick live in this movie was because it's Riddick. I actually enjoyed a few pieces of this franchise that has been created around him. Overly macho physique of the whole film is only aided by cliched writing, character, and a lack of incentive to care about anyone except Riddick and his dog. I said this already, no reason to really look at that point further. And the last point of this film before we conclude this first portion of the weekend roundup, before moving on to Insidious 2, Insidious Chapter 2, which I kind of already spoiled, whoops, is that not the continuation of Riddick franchise that most were hoping for. Not really much more to say about that if you're just kind of looking for a movie to kill some time with, to see some muscle, to see some guns, to see some manliness, and to see some boobs. I guess the Riddick film might be up your alley, but personally, these things aren't for me. These things aren't for a fan of Pitch Black and Butcher Bay, the video game that was on the original Xbox. So, we're going to move forward. Going to switch into a break and going to play a song before we get into Insidious 2. I hope you enjoyed this weekend wrap-up of Riddick Rule the Dark. Have a good one. I'm Fullicide SD. Oh, where's my closing screen? There we go.